Yeah, hi. I'm back. I'm still saying things to bridge the gaps, and it's sort of taking forever. Now, I've got a few things on the agenda for bridging the gap before I carry on talking about my life at my mother's and school. Um, One, I need to talk about how the relationship with Ruth ended. Two, um, what other treatment methods I had when I was ill, and which were perceived as entertainment in those days as well. And my desires to marry a soldier at the time when we saw a UFO, and I said earlier that there was army presence. And then at the time after I was ill, the time when I went back to school, I still wasn't able to walk as fast, but I was doing a lot better. I could walk it, although it took me a long time. So what we decided was, there was this boy, Jeffrey. He had a nasty accident, and he too was off ill for quite some time. So when he was better, the government had bought him a bicycle, and so he was taking me with him on the bicycle. I tell you, as youngsters, you have the faith of an angel. Because if it was nowadays, someone who was in his situation, I probably would have feared that we would both fall over and hurt ourselves. But anyway, so I'll talk about Jeffrey's accident and how he was helping me to get to school, and then I talked before about Anderson, was raping me, from the age of 5, 6, and then subsequently, during the time after I'd gone back to school, and my stepmother had actually left to go to Zimbabwe. This one particular occasion, I had finished school a bit early. They'd let me off a bit early because Jeffrey had gone home, or something had happened and he'd gone home early. So there was no one to give me a lift on to bring me back home. So the teacher said, you can go. And on that day, Anderson tried to rape me. And I'll tell you a bit about that to bridge the gap. How my relationship with Ruth ended. Wow. Well, we were doing very well until another girl called Joyce arrived at school. And so she was a new girl, and this girl had come from town, and she'd also lived on the Copper Belt, because Nkana Kitwe, where Ruth's mom was living, where she went every holiday, that was on the Copper Belt. And here's one thing that I can point out here now, if someone is not aware, but there is something called the hierarchy of humankind. Now, in the hierarchy of humankind, the black person is always at the bottom. Having said that, there is a hierarchy of humankind among the black people too. So you can say that, West Indies, they're like at the top, and Americans, black Americans, West Indies, and then black Africans, they're at the bottom. But in Zambia, in my little jungle, in my little cocoon, there was a hierarchy that I'm not quite sure what to call it. And whether the hierarchy was created in my mind, because, for me, I was always the one on the bottom. Why? Because of all the things that were happening to me. And I always believed that everybody else was better off, and everybody else was likable, and their parents loved them, and everybody else loved them because they have something to admire, and I got nothing to admire. And the kind of thing that I believe that Ruth and Joyce put them on that pedestal was the fact that they had urban sophistication, something I would have never experienced, because I was just going to live and die in the village and not even venture anywhere. So they shared a language, Bemba. Now, people who spoke Bemba were admired. Oh, look, they've got urban sophistication. They even speak Bemba. Oh, how great, that kind of thing. And yet, at the same time, historically, us, our ancestors, perhaps our great grandparents, they have a story to tell about the Bembas and how we may admire their sophistication, which is usually hooliganism. They are make robbers. They are lazy. They are very blasé. They are very bold in doing things. I think that's the thing that we admired. But those things that they did, that boldness, wasn't anything to achieve something good. It was always for somebody else's misery. If you sort of stumbled a bit and dropped your purse, a Bemba would put their foot on it and say, I found it, you lost it. And that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. So whether it was that, I don't know. I mean, I can't see why that is something to admire, but it was that boldness because, people like me, all of these things that I've suffered, maybe if I was a Bemba, I'd have kicked off big time and someone would have said, oh, let's pay attention. She too can have a go. She's not going to take this crap. We better stop it. But I didn't have it. I just cowled over and just pandered to everything and just remained in that subservient, shameful disposition. So Ruth and Joyce, they could speak Bemba, they clicked, and I was sort of left again without a best friend. But what had happened was, if you remember, I told you when I first arrived at my father's at that dinner table, there were 6 of us, and out of those 6, there was two girls, Rutu, also called Ruth, and Phyllis was my nanny. And Rutu was relations to my stepmother, and at the time she was of an age where men were looking to marry her. So there was an interest. There was an interest of a man who was related to our deputy head at the school. And so what they would do is, although at that particular time I actually lived at my grandmother's because my father had gone, was deported. My stepmother was still trying to find ways of. Oh, I know he wasn't deported yet. He was probably still in prison. I'm not quite sure, but I was definitely living at my grandmother's, and my stepmother was living on the farm, on my father's farm. So what had happened was that the wife to the deputy head would give me an envelope, which obviously I presumed it was a letter, and asked me to give it to Rutu. And so I would take it and I'll give her the letter, and that was it. And she too, when she wrote a letter, she gave it to me to give to the deputy head's wife. So I used to do that. But then at this particular time, I thought to myself, I wonder what those letters are about. And I said to Ruth, I need something to show off, to show her that I've got something to get excited about. And I said, you know what? I said to Ruth, I said, oh, you're always busy with that Joyce. And I said, I've got something more interesting than what she could ever present to you. And she said, what? I said, do you know that I'm the go-between that carries these letters between, Rutu and the deputy head's family? Oh, really? I said, yeah. She said, what's in the letters? I said, I don't know. I just hand them over. And she says, oh, I know how to steam a letter. You can open it without anyone knowing. And the only thing we were bothered about was the fact that if it wasn't ripped, then, nobody had tampered with it. We hadn't realized that once we've taken that, we steamed off that glue, how are we then glue it back? We didn't know that. We just pressed it a bit and thought, that's it. That should do it. But we steamed it. I think she did, because I mean it wasn't as if we had a kettle to put a kettle and steam it, but she took it. She took, you know, we didn't give her the letter, so she took it to her house and steamed it that night. And in the morning, walking back to school, because we actually Joyce joined in at a point where we'd already gone about 4 miles down the road towards school. And, you know, in the meantime, the two of us would walk that 4 miles together. So during that time, she said to me, right, I've seen the letter, let's have a look at it. And we looked at it, and that's when we learned that this was a courtship type letter. You know, it's a love letter. They're writing to each other and responding, and it's all going to happen. And so when I actually managed to give the letter over, it was queried that somebody had said the letter hadn't been seen. Where has it been? And when it was seen, it looked like it'd been opened. Well, I don't know. So Rutu, also called Ruth, obviously, she wasn't happy that her letters had been tampered with. And the boys, there was this, he's still there actually, he's still alive, this boy, we called him Big Boy, and he's still called Big Boy now. And I think his Christian name was Jack. Jack Likubangwa. That was his surname, Likubangwa. And it was his mother that bludgeoned her uncle, right? So he'd put this placard on a tree, and you know, on the road which we used to go home. And this was a place, it was marked the Devil's Corner. So this was where all the disagreements were sort of ironed out and resolved. So it would be like a kangaroo court. But it never just ended in just talking and agreement. No, it never. And everybody knew if there's an issue, everybody would quickly go there, so that they're like, it's as if, I mean, there was no chairs or anything like that, but everybody stood around the bushes while, you know, whoever is supposed to be talked about, what issues, they stood in front, in the middle, you know, on the soil, on the road bit. But all the time, that kind of exercise ended up in the people who have got their differences coming to blows. And that is what they all looked forward to. They looked forward to, hey, jeering, yeah, kick them, oh, let's see who's going to win, you know, come on, that kind of thing. And so this particular time, I don't know, Rutu had said to someone that I'm going to have this resolved. So that afternoon, walking home, we got to know that Ruth, myself, and Joyce, we were going to, you know, to go to this Kangaroo Court and have it out. How did this letter get like this? Because what had happened is Joyce is actually was the family with Rutu, and my friend Ruth, who had become friends with her and put me aside, started confiding in her. So Ruth told Joyce that the letter, you know, I'd steamed the letter, and I was telling all these stories. And it was all looking at me as the culprit. And I said, look, I didn't do it. You know, I said, Ruth did it. And Ruth says, no, well, Joyce did it, right? So I thought, right, maybe Joyce did it. I mean, I would never know that, because I didn't know who had steamed the letter. But all I know is that Ruth had taken it. In the morning we were reading it. But I don't know if Joyce had decided she'll go all the way and, you know, I mean, I can't see it. I can't see it happening that Joyce had traveled a further 4 miles to go and stay with Ruth. It didn't happen like that in the village. It's not something that was done. You know, we didn't do sleepovers like that. So anyway, because we were all accusing each other. So what Rutu did is she started with me, gave me a hard slap. So she slapped me a bit. She slapped me a bit a few times, and then went to Ruth and slapped her a bit just the once. and then went to Joyce and slapped her a bit, just the once. And then the boy said, right, now we're going to resolve this. And what's going to happen is that I was going to fight with Ruth. And then after fighting with Ruth, when that fight ends, whoever loses, right, waits. And then I then fight with Joyce. And then Joyce and Ruth fights. And we wanted an overall winner. So I managed to beat both of them. So none of them beat me. But when Ruth and Joyce fought, Joyce lost. So it was then that night when we got home, I don't know what had happened, whether I'd given a bleeding nose or a cut lip or what to Ruth. Her grandfather took it upon himself to go to school the next day with a gun to shoot this person that had damaged his granddaughter. And I have no clue. I have no clue how my grandmother got to hear about this. But she heard what was happening, and the mode of transport for these people in those days were bicycle. So Ruth's grandfather got on his bicycle. My grandmother had got on the bicycle going to school because he'd heard someone had said they saw Mandela with a gun going to school to shoot the person who was fighting with his granddaughter yesterday. And of course, I had said when I got home, because violence is something to be proud of in that family, isn't it? So I said, oh well, they made me fight, but nobody actually beat me. I beat them both. I beat Ruth, and I also beat Joyce. And I think my grandmother sort of got it from that when she heard about, Ruth's granddad going to shoot the person. She said, that must be what I was talking about. So she gets on the bicycle and says, he tries it, I'm going to get that gun off him and shoot him. So she rides to school, and it was a big kerfuffle at school, and the headmaster was like, these are kids. If they were fighting, why are you grown-ups getting involved? And my grandmother says to Ruth's granddad, he says, you know what? You are a foreigner. You try anything, and I'll make sure that you're chased away from this village. And I don't like the look of being chased away from the village, because if something was going on, and you were brought against the Kangaroo Court with the Mandunas and the headman, and worse if you had to be brought to the chief. Well, I've seen the consequences of that. If you're found guilty, it's not a good thing. And Ruth's granddad has seen it too, and I'm sure he could not contemplate finding himself in that situation, so he abandoned the whole thing, and went back home. And so my friendship with Ruth started to dwindle. And because this was also at a time when I had just gone back to school, I had not long gone back to school, after I was ill. And she was in my class. We did exams. And after the exams, she just went. I actually don't remember what she got in her exams. She went to her mother's, and that was it. That was the last time I had ever seen her. But I thought that this was a person that we were going to follow each other until in adulthood, and upgrade each other about our lives and that kind of thing, because I thought we were very close. But because of what had happened at that particular time, she didn't want to look back with me. Unfortunately, and that was it. I've lost that friendship, but even now I still wonder what became of her. Is she still alive? Is she all right? She was a year older than me, but I still worried about her. I still worried. She was a couple of years older than me. I still worried for her and wanted to know what was going on. So that's how that relationship ended. But during that time, before I went back to school, obviously I was ill, as I had said, and about 18 months I was in and out of hospital. And, in between that in and out of hospital, my great-grandmother and my grandmother, they had got this woman called Agnes. Agnes was one of the, like a traditional healer, and they called her healing thing Inzila. Inzila is like a path, a way, a road. And how they tested it, and they have to it's like if you are supposed to be possessed with something. So they need to find out, first and foremost, if that is what is your ailment is. And if it is, then you go through a treatment process. And this fact-finding thing, whether you're possessed with this illness, with whatever that was, it was, hang on. Yeah, it was done sort of in the evening towards sunset. That's when it was done every day. Every time, so when I say every day, every time someone's had to come and check this, it was done at that time. And you'd sit on a dining chair, and in front of you would be a table. It would be usually a mortar, one of those big mortars which you use for pounding maize, turned over, and a cloth, like a scarf, put over it. And on top of this scarf, like a teacup. And this teacup has got a mound of lime, which is, made on it into a cross. So it lives in this white wrapped up box with a chiffon type white cloth. So it's really, valued. So she brings it out, she puts it on top of this thing, and the person who she's going to check out, if they are possessed with this thing, sits in front of it on a dining chair with their hands on turned up on their knees. So as you're sat, like you would sit on top of your legs, and the eyes focused on this cup. Then she would have this what looks like a cowbell, and she would have two of them. And she's behind you and ringing them, playing sounds with them, but ringing them really in your ears and chanting whatever it is she's chanting. She's going at it, she's chanting at it, she's chanting at it. If you start shaking, they say that you're possessed. So then she puts you through treatment process. And apparently I shook, but I think I pretended. I think I pretended anything to try and, make me feel better would have been great. But I think I pretended. Now, the thing is, maybe I didn't pretend. I have no clue really, because the treatment process is actually quite harsh. It's actually one of the entertainment nights if someone is going through that kind of treatment, because it's an all-nighter. When I say all night, until about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And what they do is she brings roots and herbs and what have you, and she piles them in this massive, maybe I would say I don't know, 100 liters of water, and it's on this massive log of fire, and it's boiling. It's literally boiling, and she's got this bunch of leaves of it from a specific plant. It just has to be from that particular plant, and she ties it in a certain way that she dips it in this boiling water. The water stays on there, and she splashes this boiling water all over your naked body with this water. And you're supposed to be, every time she's doing that, when it comes to that, you're sitting with your legs spread, you're on the floor, and you're going round and round and round and round and round and round, just pulling your legs and going round, pulling your legs and going round. So the water is all over you. She's not just splashing it on your face. You keep turning like a carousel. But obviously not like a carousel, because you're just like a person on a pin, being twirled. So you keep turning, but you have to be sat down and your legs are sprawled out. And that goes on for hours. And while they're doing that, they're singing songs, and there's men with their 6 or 7 drums, different rhythms, different kind of songs that they're beating, and the women are there clapping. There isn't any dancing, just singing, clapping, and drum beating, and this water all over you. Now, when the water in the boiling water, it remains on the stove on the fire, and they add more firewood, obviously, and they top it up with more water. And while that is boiling, they have to wait for it to boil. They're sacrificing chicken. My gosh, I've been through all sorts, haven't I? So a number of chickens, they're slaughtered. And, I mean, I have killed chicken, but I've always held them down until their life goes. But for that purpose, they slit the chicken's throat. So the chicken, the wings are still flapping. They hold it by the legs. And she's going around the fire and splashing and sort of whipping the chicken into the fire where this massive tub of water is boiling. And she's just, chanting stuff and doing it like that. And then what happens is, I don't know what happens to the rest of the chicken, but this one particular chicken, when it's slaughtered, it's, no, I tell you lie, that one isn't slaughtered at the time of the ceremony. It was during the morning. No, not on the day. Right. Those chickens, I think she takes with her. I don't know what she does with them. Whether they eat them there or whether she does more magic with them, I don't know. So, about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, it's over. It's done. And, maybe before that, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. And then, I'm then supposed to go to bed and not speak to anyone. That was the law. So I go to bed and I don't speak to anyone. And then I'm supposed to follow whatever the spirit says to me. And I found myself doing bizarre things that I couldn't explain. How did I do this? Like, I'd woken up 5 o'clock in the morning one day, and here's someone who couldn't walk, and I'd walked into the field with a hoe and dug up this tree, the root, and brought it. I have no clue whether it was poison or not, and boiled the root and started drinking the blooming water. And apparently it's okay. That's what happens because the spirit is guiding her, and I'm doing also this kind of nonsense stuff. And then, of course, what happens is the roots that were boiling, the water that she used to splash you around, that water in the morning, she takes it and puts it in this little hut that is enclosure that is made just for you. And there's a lot of expenditure. You have to buy this massive white bath dish, massive, bowl, and the water is put in there, and the roots. So you don't have a warm bath. And I think mine was in the winter actually even. But I have to get up every morning and I have to go wash in that water. And the enclosure where my bath water was, there was a roof, a thatched roof to it. And I was going in there every day to wash. And this particular day I went in there and there was this humongous snake in the roof. And it didn't make me jump. I just finished my wash and I came out and I said to Uncle Richard, I think I must have said, oh, don't go in there. There's a snake. And he said, but you went in there and you had your wash and you come out. I said, yeah, it doesn't bother me. Since when I'm thinking now? Now I'm only thinking that now. Since when did the snake not bother me? And that snake disappeared without anyone actually doing anything to it. Because, well, for me, I could have killed it. But I just didn't bother with it. I don't know, the next day it was gone and nobody killed it. That was bizarre because that's not what happened in the village. And then at the end of it all, apparently the spirit tells you then, you are not going to go and bath in that water anymore. And on that day, then a chicken is slaughtered, right? If it's the chicken that's slaughtered, if it's a hen, when the chicken that's slaughtered it's cooked for you and you eat only by yourself. the whole chicken in one sitting. And then, and everybody wanted to do that because everything was very minimal, you know. So to have a whole chicken, you're eating that by yourself in one sitting. If you leave it, they throw it away. The only thing they kept was the bones. And those are the bones which are eventually crushed, mixed up into this lime and put on this cup. And this is done at a different ceremony where there's a bigger hierarchy. I think this is all witchcraft, I've decided now. Because to be honest, I don't know what I was subscribing to. But what bothered me is that there was prayer. And there was teachings about health and hygiene, how to keep clean and that kind of thing. And the soul wants something clean. But then the chanting and the stuff that were going on with it just didn't seem right. Oh, crikey, here we go again. I've gone over 30 minutes. Oh, this is the first one over 30 minutes. I'll leave it there. I promise you I'll take it exactly from where I left it. All right.